These are the best heroes to play so far in patch 7.41a. Hi, I'm Torte, and with the release of 7.41a, we're seeing a shift away from ranged core heroes and a move towards tanky brutes with aggressive supports. Let's break it down. Alright, it's been a long time since Alchemist was relevant, but 7.41 and 7.41a has finally made a meta with this new Aghanim Scepter. Essentially, with each Aghanim Scepter that you give to an ally, Alchemist's Greevil greed triples its base gold from 2 to 8, and his max bonus gold from 16 to 22. So in short, building up your Greevil's greed now starts at a higher gold amount, and once you slay enough creeps, your maximum bonus gold, which you see right here, means you can earn up to 22. And this is just after giving one Aghanim Scepter to a teammate. You can still do this 4 more times if you want. Most people do around maybe 1 or 2. And all this, by the way, an Alchemist also gains 15 bonus damage, or the equivalent of a 1200 broadsword. So now we're seeing a lot of Alchemist players kind of get it, a 12 to 14 minute Radiance. They're going to snag a quick Ags or 2 for their team before securing a Blink Dagger. Essentially, if everything kind of done right, the Ag Scepter kind of enhances your team, while the Greevil's greed gold bonus kind of helps compensate for the lost time you took to get that Aghanim Scepter, so you can still hit pretty much your core item timings. The Lifestealer is currently tearing through the meta thanks to improvements that have made his early game way easier. With a boost to his base damage at level 1 stats, securing last hits has never been easier, even with reductions made in 7.41a. The shift of Feast to a basic ability allows you to basically scale your damage output much earlier than before, providing a massive advantage during the lane stage. You could pretty much bully out a lot of offlaners that you previously maybe have contested with before. The newfound efficiency basically accelerates your item progression significantly. So in a favorable lane, you can now reliably hit your Radiance timing pretty much around 11, 13, maybe 14 minutes max, which is pretty much a massive leap forward from the traditional 16, 17 minute mark. Lifestealer's kind of greatest historical weakness was being kited, and that's really finally becoming a thing of the past, while traditional range carries like Drill Ranger have pretty much fallen off due to nerfs. Nyx has received a series of significant mobility buffs that have made him pretty much nearly impossible to escape. Between his improvement in base movement speed and the 18% bonus now granted by Rage, activating phase boots turns Lifestealer into a literal race car. I think 7.4 on A maybe reduced his rage speed to what does it look like, 15%. That's still pretty significant. So again, it's pretty strong. Then you have to factor in the 20 plus movement speed at level 10, and you can reach a pretty staggering movement speed of 500 plus by level 11. And really, to top it all off, the open wounds ability now applies a massive 50% slow starting at level 1, and that pretty much ensures that once you close the gap on your target or your victim, is really not going anywhere. So Lifestealer's presence in teamfights has reached an almost unkillable status. The synergy between his low cooldown abilities and his new talent tree makes him pretty much an absolute nightmare to kind of focus down. With Rage on the mere 6-second cooldown, he maintains nearly perfect magic immunity, especially when bridged by the Aghanim Scepter upgrade. Basically, this allows you to infest an enemy every 20 seconds, granting you a safe haven to wait out the brief windows when Rage is offline, all while continuing to deal damage from within. Furthermore, his historical struggle with low attack speed has been more or less completely neutralized. By level 15, you can pick up the massive plus 50 attack speed talent again on open wounds, and then getting this much scaling attack speed before even hitting level 20, combined with the burn from a sub 13 Radiance and the lifesteal from Feast, really turns Lifestealer into kind of an unescapable or inescapable high DPS tank. I mean, you can see him pretty much tear through this team like butter. So Slark, again, kind of meta this patch, has evolved from kind of a niche pick into a dominant force, largely because the developers have neutralized his primary vulnerability, the laning phase. While he previously struggled to recover from a poor start, the modern Slark really consistently exits the early game with enough farm to kind of terrorize the map with just a diffusal blade at a really good timing. I mean, here he's just going absolutely nuts on what would be a pretty comfortable lane regardless. The newfound stability driven by Saltwater Shiv, which now offers such potent HP regeneration and movement speed steal at level 1, by the way, that it effectively mimics a Ring of Health at similar health regeneration points. Although the increased cooldown necessitates more, let's say, discipline usage to avoid being caught between windows. The sheer value of the buff is just astronomical, and it really gives Slark the chance to kind of bypass having to put more points in it, and really allows him to snowball into the mid game with power spikes once he gets the Fuel Blade, maybe Ag Scepter, Ag Shard. These are very common items for him. So beyond the laning stage, I think Slark is relatively the same. His core identity hasn't really changed, right? He still prioritizes the Ag Scepter for the double bounce, which again continues to rack up Essence Shift stacks at a pretty fast rate. The transition into Disperser is also really easy. You can go Ag Scepter, Ag Shard into a straight Disperser if you want. It provides a massive kind of surge into agility, which gives you damage and attack speed, evidently, and it also gives you a great Dispel you can use on enemies or yourself with that also extra movement speed. Don't forget about that. Really, the Disperser is used for, against items like Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, Ghost Scepter. These are kind of ways to avoid taking damage from Slark. Now that his early game is pretty effectively solved, I would say, Slark kind of hits his power spikes really, really fast, snowballs pretty easily, right? He has an insane amount of agility. You can see here in this fight here, his agility, or the amount of essence stacks that he has is just bewildering at 28 minutes. It's pretty insane. And so pretty much you can use that to secure a lot of map pressure in the mid game, and then ultimately just end the game or close the game out at 30-35 minutes. Ember Spirit is back once again in the meta, and while the changes to his Searing Chains and Sleight of Fist really seemed minimal, especially with the loss of his Chain Gang facet, the new Mage Slayer is pretty goddamn good on him, and we can pretty much forgive the rest because of that. Mage Slayer was already decent on Ember Spirit, and now it no longer provides attack speed, but now deals double its damage and is physical damage instead of magical, and that means that Ember Spirit's Sleight of Fist is going to go so hard and so early on in the match. Most Ember Spirit players are really hitting Mage Slayer at a 12 to 15 minute timing on that Mage Slayer, making kind of their damage output pretty brutal to deal with, as most enemies don't really have that much armor. What's more is that Mage Slayer now requires a Perseverance, not Cornucopia, so Ember Spirit can get that early Void Stone to spam Sleight of Fist in lane, as well as kind of a Blades of Attack for even more early game damage. Items like Shiva's also works out really well for Ember Spirit with the extra AoE, and he still loves to go Kaya and Sange. Ag Scepter and Shard are pretty good, and I've seen some players pick up that new Bloodstone at 8k MMR. But just a heads up, again, Ember Spirit might be meta for the mid lane, but he might easily win the lane against a lot of mid heroes that are also good. But popular carry heroes like Slark or Lifestealer, which I just talked about, can be tough to deal with for Ember Spirit. Shadow Shaman is also pretty meta. He's tough to deal with as well. So just a heads up that you might get counterpicked, or just a heads up on who's already been picked, and maybe don't pick Ember in those circumstances. When there's an Ember in the meta, Huskar is right behind him, right? Every time Ember comes up, guess who's following right behind him? Huskar, of course, because he's a very natural counter to Ember Spirit. The difference is that Huskar has gotten massively buffed, and is somehow even more deadly than before, which is super annoying. With the removal of Shiva's Guard, no longer reducing health restoration, really Huskar's biggest concern is Spirit Vessel, which has always been an issue, and the new Krella Crozier, maybe someone can tell me how to pronounce that word correctly, and that has a permanent passive of reducing health restoration by like 30%. For Spirit Vessel, at least Huskar's Cauterized facet is now his Ag Shard, where he can now activate Berserker's Blood to dispel the charge. His Burning Spear also has better late game scalability than before, since it now does 0.5% of the target's max health. And this stems from his old Incendiary facet, if you remember, where in 7.37b, it used to do like 0.75% max health percent damage. So it's only natural, or it's only basically a 0.25% drop, and it costs Huskar only like 2% of his max health, whereas in 7.37b, it used to cost 4%. So a lot less cost with a tiny drop of effectiveness in the late game. Talked about this before, but Doom got a huge makeover, and not just with the number 666. Doom is one of the heroes that gained the most from those lost facets, as his Devour ability is now supercharged, where it has a low cooldown, and the Ag Shard version gives him 2 charges of Devour, plus the spells from the creeps he devours gain a 20% bonus AoE and 40% spell amplification, and he can eat Ancients with that Ag Shard. I mean, Doom was already a pretty high performer before, and basically now with Devour, He maxes out Scorched Earth to wipe creep waves pretty fast, honestly. It's just absolutely insane. So grabbing, even something like a Black Dragon and literally insta-wiping creep waves is not only pushing out the lanes, but it, again, maxes out your farm with the hero and makes it an absolute breeze. By the way, the reason we're maxing Scorched Earth first is because they brought back the health regen of the ability up to 10 at max level. So this hero is just absolutely bonkers in kind of surviving the lane just to farm like a god after he absolutely destroys you. Speaking of his laning stage, it's also pretty insane because the Infernal Blade combined with his new level Pain innate ability and Scorched Earth means he can pretty much straight up run down most offlaners over and secure the lane with ease. He's just really in kind of an unbeatable spot right now where his laning is tough to deal with, and he can go free farming once he secures that lane to pretty much beat everybody out, except maybe Alchemist, maybe, in terms of GPM. I also should mention his talents are also weirdly too strong, right? It's free 66 damage at level 15, which Doom easily hits thanks to, again, Devour and Midas. But also his level 25 talent means, permanent Scorched Earth, which is, again, extra regen, extra movement speed. I've seen some pros go like Sanj and Yasha to take advantage of that permanent regeneration, or even before that. His new level Pain innate ability, it's again interesting. We talked about it. But while his new Ag Scepter is also interesting because it does apply an AoE break, and that's pretty insane as well. The hero is pretty much back from the proverbial dead to become probably one of the greatest farmers in the game right now. In many ways, Tidehunter hasn't changed, right? He still builds Vlad's, Blink, and Ag Shard, but what's really noteworthy is his new innate ability, Leviathan's Catch. Essentially, with every kill, you can see this fat Tidehunter, for example, has been very well fed. Basically, with every kill or just an enemy hero that dies while affected by Tide's debuff, which is either Gush or Kraken Shell or Ravage, Tidehunter eats a fish that gives him attack range, which he also gets bonus damage block and health instead of strength, which was his old Krill Eater facet, if you remember that. He also gets a fish per level up, so your Anchor Smash will eventually have a massive AoE because Anchor Smash has also been changed where it's set range as well as your attack range. Let's also not forget that the new Shiva's Guard is also really nice on him still. That gives your Anchor Smash, Ravage, and Ag Scepter upgraded Gush slow. Basically, it increases the AoE across the board. Not to mention that the Shiva's Guard slow pierces BKB and gives a bit more armor than before. But lastly, what really makes Tidehunter so good right now is that a lot of range heroes are now extinct in this meta, making way for Tidehunter to be a great initiator for your team once again. Just check this out. Spirit Breaker just became more obnoxious, and it's all due to his Ag Scepter, which I'm sure you've probably seen the news about that from an RTZ stream, for example. I don't think people really realize kind of how bad it is. For starters, his new innate ability, Empower Haste, gives you like 8% more movement speed when you stun an enemy. So with Charge of Darkness, you gain at least 8% more move speed to then deal bonus damage from your Nether Strike. With just Shadow Blade and Phase Boots, some people like to go drums as well. Spirit Breaker is dealing like 1,000 damage with just 2 abilities, and he can pretty much, obviously, as you know, charge from across the map, and that means any creeps or heroes you hit along the way adds to that innate ability bonus movement speed, which in turn adds to the greater bash bonus damage. I mean, even from the laning stage, right, dealing with a Spirit Breaker that is getting built up damage from his innate ability is pretty absurd. Now the Ag Scepter kicks into kind of high gear where you are now knocking back anyone you charge past, and if it hits anyone, that enemy is also bashed, and they take 25% of the great bash damage, as well as the original person that got bashed. So this hero is literally invisible from Shadow Blade, dealing 1,000 plus damage, whatever, in the combo, and he's applying even more damage if 2 enemies clonk heads together, which is very likely in team fights, since Nether Strike will push enemies back forward after getting charged and pushed or bashed back. Rubick is a real quickie to talk about. His recent surge in power stems primarily from his Curiosity innate ability, which provides scaling auto attack damage. I mean, you see him just having a ton of fun just right clicking people down with 4 stacks of Curiosity. 4 of them are permanent on top. The hero gains even more value when enemies cast spells. within a generous 1200 radius, and if a hero dies after taking damage from Rubick, he earns a permanent stack of curiosity, and this kind of allows him to kind of snowball. This Rubick went insane with Dagon, for God's sakes, which I think gives you extra range. And it just lets Rubick snowball from the laning stage onward as a massive range for gaining stacks, ensures he kind of remains relevant throughout the game. Players can feel relatively comfortable piloting this hero, knowing that every skirmish and every minute that passes only serves to make him a more formidable threat at an extreme range as the match progresses. Lich was already a pretty strong support in the previous patch due to his ability to kind of dominate lanes with a low cooldown of Frost Blast and the massive protection of Frost Shield. At max level, with the right talent, Frost Shield can reduce incoming damage by up to 70%. It's still OP. His playstyle was becoming even more his playstyle right now is becoming even more accessible now that his previous mana restrictions from the previous patch or from 7.40 have been lifted. While he used to rely on Sinister Gaze or a passive innate ability for mana sustain, he now possesses natural mana regeneration. It's come back for him, alongside the return of the obnoxious sacrifice ability. Starting at kind of the 2-minute mark, you can use this skill every 120 seconds to deny an allied creep, and since it targets it can work on siege creeps, it can work on range creeps, it work on flag bearers. You can consistently kind of strip the enemy of significant gold and experience over time, because sacrifice counts as a deny, and Lich still receives the experience himself, allowing him to pull ahead while leaving his opponents starved. I mean, this is just annoying. It doesn't matter if he had the sacrifice ability or not. It's just annoying to see Frost Blast have such a low cooldown at level 1. Again, everything else about Lich is the same. Doesn't need many items, just Ag Shard, maybe a Blink Dagger, Glimmer Cape if you really need it, Force Staff. I like Solar Crest, it's still a viable option. And his new level 20 talent, it gives 2 Frost Shield charges, so you can actually cast it on 2 allies during fights, or control when to use a second Frost Shield, depending if you're waiting for a big enemy initiation or not. The alternative level 20 talent, which I think is more popular, is Chain Frost on Death. That's always a good pick as well. So your level 20 talent is whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, I think I covered most heroes there. There are still a lot more OP heroes like Venomancer, Meepo. Shadow Shaman is still good for sure. Phoenix is a good response to a lot of slow hitters out there right now. Puck's still good too. Great mid hero, but let me know what you think, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. A lot of you guys are asking me about the guides update, if I'm getting around to them or when will they be updated. Right now, I'm really focusing on the priorities I have in life, which is something I neglected a lot over the past 13 years. Really focusing on trying to make this financially sound to keep making guides. So please bear with me. I will do the guides when I can. Also, again, I just hit Immortal after 6 months. 6 months of playing ranked. So check me out on Twitch to see how I'm doing. Thanks again.